Yes, I've started the recording.
Thank you for starting the recording, Surinder. I'd like to welcome everyone to our Darlaston board meeting and our public part of our meeting. So, Surinder, could I suggest that what we do is normal practice is go through them. First of all, apologies.
Yes, of
Have we had
course.
any? Yeah.
We have from Gareth Mason and Natasha Mann.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And conflicts, declarations of interest, are up to date. Are there any declarations anyone would like to make on the agenda items that are going to be presented today in the public meeting? Other than the standard ones, great. Could we then go through the minutes, Surinder, page by page, and we'll approve them?
Yeah, sure. Just bear with me. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Yeah, sure. So these notes were from Wednesday, 11th of February, and this is page 1. Page 2. And page 3.
Thank you very much. I've read through them and I will confirm that they're a true reflection. Can I just get a show of hands to confirm, second them? Thank you very much, guys. So we'll take them as read. So we'll now move forward into the advisory board meeting. Just bear with me 1 minute. So I'd like to welcome everyone. Obviously, the public part of the meeting is here to ensure that we're informing our community and the public of what we're doing. The public meetings are done on a recorded basis so that we can actually engage with questions. So if anyone watching this video after it's recorded wants to contact us, they can contact us through darlastonpfn@walsall.gov.uk, or they can reach out to www.darlastonplan.co.uk. The key thing about public meetings is to ensure that we're informing everyone and ensuring that as we move forward, we maintain momentum with our community and engagement. So what I'd like to do at this present moment in time is introduce Roland as chair of the chairs, and then we will have our chairs give their overviews of what's happened from our last meeting.
Okay, hello everybody, nice to see you all present and welcome to all of you who are joining us by watching the video. We're going to go through the groups, the advisory groups, so that you can see who chairs them and some of the activity that is happening at the moment. The groups have been set up specifically for what happens next, which is the delivery of the projects once the funding comes in. So it's important that these groups are focused, and our governance group, which I'll talk a little bit about at the end of all of these brief presentations, the governance group have been working very hard to help the chairs of the groups and the groups themselves become focused on the important things that need to be done as part of delivering projects once the funding has arrived. Would you like to introduce each one, Manjit, as we go through? Would that be okay?
I can do that, Roland. Would it be a good time just to introduce the 2 new members of the advisory groups that have been just recently joined?
Yes, that's fine. Okay, no problem at all. Happy to do that. Let me just get the notes. Okay, so we have 2 new members of the advisory groups. The first is I'll deal with the one that I was involved in the process with most recently, and that's Mr. Imran Sasha. Imran made an application through the usual process to become a member of the one of the advisory groups. Particularly in his case, he wanted to be on the faith group, and his CV actually speaks for itself. I was very pleased to see the activity. He's a local resident. He's born and bred in the area. He works with the mosques, primarily through the UMO, as well as his own mosque, which is in the local area. He has extensive charity involvement in the area as well, both in a formal way and informally. He also Most importantly for us, and this will become important shortly, he sits on the SACRE board, the SACRE board, which is the board that works across religions to decide what the religious education syllabus is for the whole of the Walsall schools for the coming 3 years. And obviously their work has been coming to a conclusion for the 3 years coming now. So he's been involved with all different religions to look at the RE syllabus, and that skill, that ecumenical experience, that cross-faith experience is particularly missing in our governance arrangements, especially since Father Gilbert has now moved to Manchester, isn't it? I think Manchester he's gone to. So it's missing on our board, and it's certainly missing in our faith group now because of Father Gilbert going. So I'm very pleased that he puts an application in. We interviewed him recently, and he's an excellent character. He clearly has the community, cross-cultural community in his heart, and gives a lot of his time, his skills and experience to the community free of charge, as you all do here as well. So I have no hesitation in recommending him to the board for the position of taking up the position in the faith group, in the faith advisory group. Over to you for that vote, and I'll deal with Jazz.
Thank you very much, Roland. So just 2 members coming on. Just for clarity, those who've gone through the process and the governance group and chairs have recommended that. I will ask for a show of hands if people feel that they shouldn't be taken on as advisory board members. So if I can see a show of hand, if that is the case.
Can I just say, do you want me? We're only voting for one at the minute because I want to talk about Jazz afterwards, because I haven't talked about Jazz at all yet. Okay, so it's only for Imran at the moment.
Imran, and then finally, just Roland, I know the answer to this. He's also a resident, isn't he, of Darlaston?
Oh yes, I said at the beginning he's a resident. Yes, he is.
Superb. So a show of hands if anyone feels that he should not be added to the advisory board as a recommendation. Okay, so Roland, no show of hands of that, so that's accepted. Can we then move on to Jazz, please?
Yes, of course. Jazveer is Jazveer here, H-E-E-R, I think that's how you pronounce it, is an accountant, works in education, has long links in education, has worked in business as well, is qualified as an accountant, and actually fulfills a very important role, or will, if elected, if we pass her through this section, is going to fulfil a very important role within our main board, because we have a direct skills shortage in the finance side. And we're very pleased that she made her application when she did, because obviously it's before the main fund comes through. We are wanting her to come onto the main board because of her finance skills, and it's a shortage that's been identified in the main board. She probably will in time join one of our advisory groups as well, but that's for another time. Right now we're asking for her to join the board. She's gone through the normal process. She is a resident, and make that clear. And she came for an interview, and I was very pleased to see her extensive experience, and she clearly has, like Imran, the community of Darlaston in her heart, and really does want to make a difference in that respect, and has been involved in other activities, similar types of activities previously. So again, she's made a proper application. It's been considered through the process, as Imran's was, that we have written down. And I have no hesitation. Again, I'm delighted to say that she was unanimously passed through the governance and chairs committee at the last meeting, as was Imran. So we're very pleased to recommend her to the board as well.
Again, recommendation from the governance chair and chair of chairs is that we take Jazz on for her skills. Can I have a show of hands if anyone feels that should not take place? Okay, so good news, Roland, there. So those 2 appointments are agreed, and I'm glad to see that our residents, as defined by Westminster, are strengthening. and we'll move forward. So I'll now like to bring forward our community and residents chair, Joyce, to give us an overview of what's happened over the last month.
Hi, good morning. Joyce Gibson, lead of Residents and Community Advisory Group. I've continued to take positive steps to engage and encourage residents who have expressed an interest in joining the Residents and Community Group. I've signposted most of them to Darlaston PFN at walsall.co.uk to request an expression of interest form. Several forms have already been requested and returned, which is really encouraging. Following the Easter break, I've reconnected with community groups, and I hope in the next couple of weeks to revisit a school that I've already connected with and to approach other schools to continue the work there.
Thank you, Joyce, for that update. Can I then ask the voluntary group chair, please, to give us an update?
Hiya, I'm Rani. I'm the chair of the voluntary group. Like Joyce said, we've had quite a lot of interest come through that we've been working through together collectively as a team. We've been meeting regularly, and there has been some engagement. We've got some events planned, and I think over the coming weeks, I think we're going to see quite a bit of a momentum with the activity that's going on in the voluntary group and my fellow groups as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rani. Can I then ask the Youth Advisory Group Chair, Aradhana, to give us an update?
Hi, my name's Aradhana Memi, and good morning, everyone. I'm just reporting on some 3 key areas for my group, which is the operating framework for how I see the group moving forward, targeted member recruitment activity, as my colleagues Joyce and Rani have already touched on, and also looking at designing a participation models to ensure young voices are heard. In terms of the operating framework, we want to ensure that the various life stages are covered and an inclusion lens is there to capture NEET, SEND and vulnerable groups, aligning to our initial outcome lenses which have been identified in the survey. We want to make sure that the youth group is a team made of Darlaston residents with particular experience in these areas so that we can capture credible representation across the board. In terms of recruitment drive, as my colleagues mentioned, we have the Darlaston Day on this weekend where we will be setting up a stall to try and drive up expressions of interest from local public. I would like to extend that out in the future by making contact with the library, modality centre and ASDA so that we can get more reach in terms of Darlaston residents. In terms of participation model, everybody's quite rightly focused on ensuring that young voices are heard and that they are taken into consideration. I'm looking at designing a model where we can have youth anchors and a toolkit that we can empower young people at schools, at youth clubs, in various locations, in which they can gather credible feedback, which is then fed back to our advisory group and then taken forward in terms of aligning funding proposals in the future. So that's the feedback for now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Aradhana, for that. I will then ask my Business Enterprise Innovation Group Chair to give us an update on that. Amar?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Darlaston. My name is Ami Yaqub. I'm the Group Managing Director in the real estate sector and also a resident here in Darlaston. I also chair the Business Enterprise Innovation Advisory Board as part of the 20 million Pride in Place investment in Darlaston. This funding, it's a major opportunity for our town. It's about strengthening the local economy, supporting the businesses that are already here, and creating real opportunities for residents and improving Darlaston as a place to live, work and visit. But most importantly, it's about making sure that this investment is spent properly with long-term impact, not just short-term change. We work alongside the main board, bringing practical, real-world input to make sure decisions reflect what Darlaston actually needs. So, what are we focusing on? First of all, supporting local businesses. We want to help existing businesses grow and thrive. We want to support independent traders and make sure local businesses benefit from the investment coming into the town. Secondly, creating jobs and opportunities. This is about making sure local people benefit directly. Now that means employment opportunities, skills and training, and real pathways for young people to build their future here in Darlaston. Thirdly, revitalising our town centre. We want to see a more active, vibrant high street, a place where people want to spend time in, with the right mix of businesses, services and community spaces. Fourthly, encouraging enterprise and innovation. Now that means startups, new ideas, flexible way of working, and creating an environment where businesses can grow and adapt. Now, in terms of how we'll work, now we'll be encouraging we will be engaging with local businesses, residents and stakeholders, providing clear recommendations and focusing on projects that are practical and deliverable. Now, throughout all of this, we are guided by one simple principle. This investment must benefit Darlaston and its people first. Now that means supporting businesses, creating opportunities for local residents, and delivering improvements that people can genuinely see and feel. Now, this is a shared opportunity. It's a chance to shape the future of Darlaston in a way that is inclusive, sustainable, and true to the town's identity. Now, we want people to be part of that. So whether you're a business owner, a resident, a young person, part of a community group, your voice matters and we welcome your input. Now, Pride in Place is about more than investment. It's about confidence in Darlaston. Now, our role is to make sure that confidence turns into real opportunity for the people who live and work here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amar, for that update. I'm now going to give an update. Roland, at this point, I just want to talk about before I come, I'll do the Interfaith Advisory Group update because Father Gilbert isn't here. So first of all, I'd like to thank Father Gilbert for all the support that he's done and the work that he put in prior to moving to Manchester. So a big thank you from our board and all the work that he did. Now, we are at the early stages, as Roland says. Imran has joined us and we are working behind the scenes with the chairs and the governance boards to make sure that momentum. So I look forward to his report at our next board meeting. Roland, could you very kindly we have some functions subgroups that are not, they're more functional about security, like finance. Could you just give us an update? And we've got our chair here, Anand, who can talk about scrutiny, about how we're going to manage those funds as well, because that's one of the things that we've been hearing. So Ron, do you want to give an update of those functions that are available as well?
Yes, so the other groups that aren't consultative groups, but they're sort of governance and functional groups, are finance and scrutiny, and my own group that I chair, which is engagement and communication as well. And there's one other as well. It's just escaped my memory, I think. I'll come back to that in a second. But anyway, those groups are support groups to the board, effectively, rather than advisory groups. So, Anand, if you just want to tell people a little bit about the finance and scrutiny, which you chair.
So, thank you, Chair, and fellow Darlaston. I'm Anand Rishi. I'm a GP, local GP who works between Pleck and Darlaston Health Centre, and I've been involved with the group right from the very beginning, supporting with my experience of leadership around with healthcare services and working with local authority in the last 6-7 years around several agenda. Finance group, again, as introduced by Roland, it's supportive for the board. Until now, we have overseen the expenses. We are scrutinizing expenses on a day-to-day basis when it comes to us. And that has been one of the main functions. The expenses that we have had around communications and engagement, around our local authority support, we have requested all the available information, and that's what we are scrutinizing. We have also overseen the plan that has been submitted, and we are waiting for a final approval so that our future work would be aligned to four sections, mainly around the procurement. And I'm so pleased, Chair, that a chartered accountant, someone from accountancy background, has joined the board, because someone will have to be, I would really request that this person with an experience of accountancy should become part of finance and support us in this support group. So procurement is one of the major, procurement and contracting would remain one of the major functions of this group, along with making sure that we are ready for any audit request, and everything is auditable, or the spend is auditable, and we can be challenged on that, both internal and external audits as and when required. We would also like to make sure that any spend is aligned to the MHCLG approval of the plan, and in the interest of Darlaston residents, and that's a commitment that we give to the board. I think primarily we would be looking over these three functions, Chair, and as and when required, we would give advice on any current spend and challenge the spend that has already happened, and continue to scrutinize that.
Thank you very much, Anand, for that comprehensive report. I'd like to thank all the chairs that have worked hard in the background to get to this point. Roland, thanks for pulling that together with all the chairs. I'm now going to move forward with the consultation results and themes. Whilst the report is going through formal process and approval, I think what we would like to do is share with the public the information that we've gathered, and we have reached out to a number of our residents and community to ensure that we have taken their voice and we have some data to share. So Roland, could we bring that up, and we'll go from there. Whilst you're doing that, I'd like to thank the accountable organisation, the local authority, for all their support, because we couldn't do all of this without their support, and the officers have worked tremendously hard in the background to ensure that we're following the guidelines the Westminster has set, and I look forward to a very productive journey ahead.
Thank you. Can you see the slides on full screen?
Not at the moment.
You can't? Okay, just bear with me for a second. I've just done exactly what I did, so we'll just do this again. What can you see? Can you see anything at the minute? You see my screen?
Not yet.
Share, just bear with me.
There we are.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. Can you see that now? Full screen?
Yes, great.
Yeah, super. Okay, thank you very much. So, owing to the fact that we are in an election period, I drew the short straw to make this presentation, as it would have been a member of the staff that compiled this, and as you quite rightly said, worked so hard on this report, gathering together all this information. But before I go into the main presentation, I think it would be helpful to say just something brief about why we're sharing this now. Although the regeneration plan has now been submitted and will be published once government have completed their review, we felt it was important not to leave out local people or to leave them waiting in silence while the process continues, because this is a kind of a fairly quiet period in terms of the plan itself, and we've made the most of the time by looking at all the governance areas and talking about the groups, the delivery groups. So we felt it's important not to keep the public waiting in silence while the process continues. This morning is an opportunity to share the main themes that are emerging from the consultation. I say emerging rather than have emerged, because this is only the first phase of our consultation process. Each of the groups, as you've heard, will be also entering into some further consultation, networking and working with groups, and that information will also be fed back. So the Darlaston plan is a living plan that will change as the area's needs change. So, and we want to make clear that resident input has been central to the work that we've been doing over the last few months. It's also worth saying that the survey was not the only source of evidence that we had. There was wider engagement activity as well. As many of you know, we had community-based consultation very early on. There was an event held by the local MP, an independent survey work that was commissioned through the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, or NHCLG as we call them. And all of that has helped to provide a much broader context for the programme. So what you're going to hear this morning is not one narrow snapshot, but it's a picture built up from several strands of local feedback and supporting evidence. And I should say also, in the interest of honesty and brevity, that what follows is edited, a set of highlights rather than every piece of data sitting behind the plan, because we would be here all morning, and actually, you know, we will continue to add to that information. It's going to be a movable feast. There's more detail in the submitted material than could sensibly be covered in this session anyway. And the purpose here really is to give a clear and fair account of the main messages, not to bury people in statistics just for the sake of it. As we go through the next few slides, and there are only a few, what I want to do is to briefly explain the different strands of engagement that fed into the overall picture. The early community engagement before the board was set up, the wider board-led survey, the independent contextual work commissioned through MHCLG, and the additional feedback gathered through the MP event and other routes. I am also aware there have been other events as well discussing the committee, the plan, etc. But unfortunately, those events that were not sponsored by us or involved with us, we haven't received any information back from them. So we haven't been able to include any of the discussions in the non-sponsored events, I'm afraid. Some of those strands produced from the events that we've talked about produce percentage data very easily, because people were answering closed questions or tick box questions. Others are more open-ended, which was important because it's often in the open-ended questions where people tell you what they really think in their own words. Where that happened, the responses were coded against relevant themes so that repeat issues could be identified clearly and consistently across all of the nearly 1,000 applications that we received. When I refer to MHCLG, as you've heard already, I simply mean the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, who set up the programme and who monitor the programme together with the local authority on their behalf. They also carried out survey work of their own as well, which provides context into the programme, and they supplied that to us, some very recently. We're not producing every detail of that work this morning either, but we're drawing out some of the key messages because they help show how Darlaston compares and where some of the strongest feelings are emerging. So with that context in mind, I'd like to start with the wider picture. Let's just talk about the consultations and the activity that's happened. Early consultation was carried out through the Old Hall People's Partnership. That was helpful because it reached people in a wide range of settings and helped bring in voices that can sometimes be missed by more formal consultations alone. But we are not sitting on our laurels as far as that's concerned. There are much harder to reach groups, which we are hoping to work with organisations who are already aligned to us, who are going to help us to reach those even harder to reach groups and hear what their views are on the future for Darlaston and what they think is missing in the overall plan for neighbourhoods. What matters is that the themes coming through from that earlier engagement are very much in line with what later emerged through the wider survey. So although the formats are different, the direction of travel is remarkably similar. And that gave the board a greater level of confidence in that triangulation, that the same issues are being raised repeatedly in different contexts, using different methods, and for good reason. So in other words, the early engagement helped to confirm that the later survey findings aren't isolated or accidental. They form part of a much wider and clearer pattern. The same is true of the MP event that was held in the town hall before the survey closed. Again, I'm not going to spend a long time on that separately, but it is worth noting that again, those messages that were heard there mirrored many of the points raised elsewhere. So by the time all of this evidence...
Sorry to interrupt briefly, but I don't know if you were moving the slides along. But,
no, I'm not. I'm not
okay,
reached the slides.
cool.
Not reached the slides yet. This is kind of just to put the background in, really. By the time all of this evidence has been brought together, clear themes have actually emerged. Okay, so let's look at some of the slides and understand what's happened. The Darlaston plan is a government-backed programme with potential to bring up £20 million of investment, up to £20 million over the next decade. It's a significant opportunity, as Amma said previously and as Mandy has said, but it's not significant simply because of the amount of money involved. It's significant because opportunities of this scale just don't come along very often. And when they do, local people are entitled to expect that they will be issued with information, and they will see the plan in its full format, which is what's going to happen as soon as it's been approved. And they need to know that the information that's used is going to be used in a meaningful, visible way that's rooted in the actual needs of the town. The board has the responsibility of submitting a regeneration plan, and that's what we've done. And that's currently being reviewed by government. It has to be informed by the people who live and work here, who use the town, who raise families here and see its strengths and weaknesses every day. That's why the consultation mattered so much. If a plan is going to mean anything, it must be more than a technical document. It has to be shaped by local experience and by local evidence. So this presentation really is about showing how the evidence has been gathered and some of the very broad themes of what it's telling us. It wasn't done in one narrow way, as we've said. It was done in a very wide way, number of ways, as we've already talked about. Public events, consultation events. We sent out over 8,000, I believe it was 8,000 questionnaires out to houses all over the designated area, using the lists available from the local authority. And just in case, we also made the questionnaires available at the library and other places of worship, so that people had the opportunity to engage with the process. We also had people in places of worship and other places helping people to complete them if they had literacy or language issues as well, so that everybody had an opportunity to take part in the process. But none of us should pretend that the consultation is ever perfect. There'll always be people who didn't see it, people who didn't take the opportunity to respond, groups that are harder to reach, as we said before, than others. But that does not diminish the value of what's been achieved here. What it gives us is a strong foundation, a starting point, and importantly, a basis for continuing conversations rather than pretending it's finished. Good consultation is not only about who comes to you, it's also about whether you have the good sense and humility to go to them. And that's what we're hoping to do to those harder to reach groups. Before turning to the board-led consultation, it's useful to begin with the wider MHCLG findings, because they provide context for how residents in Darlaston feel about the local area. Some of these findings are difficult, but they are important. Satisfaction with Darlaston as a place to live is below the wider average. Satisfaction with local services and amenities in the town centre is again below the wider average. Pride in the local area is again below the wider average. We shouldn't be frightened of those findings, but we should not try to sugarcoat them either. If people are telling us that pride is low, satisfaction is low, then our duty is to hear it honestly. It tells us that many people don't feel that Darlaston is where it ought to be. But there's one figure on this slide which I think is especially important, and that's the fact that the proportion of people who believe the area will get better within the next 2 years is slightly above the wider average. That matters because it tells us that even where there is frustration, concerns or disappointment, there's still some hope. There is still a sense, however cautious, that improvement is possible, and that is something which any serious regeneration effort has to build on. Sometimes towns are not short of pride because people have given up on them. They're short of pride because people know what the place could be like and can see that it's not got there yet. The next slide deepens the picture because it doesn't always tell us about whether people like the look of the area or feel satisfied with the amenities. It's also about trust, influence, and whether people feel heard. The findings here tell us that levels of trust are lower than the wider average. The feeling is that the area is not being left behind, is lower than the wider average as well. The sense that people can influence decisions affecting their local area is slightly lower than the wider average, and the proportion who feel their voice is listened to is also slightly below average. Now, to my mind, that's a very important warning sign for us. Regeneration isn't only about buildings and roads and parks and projects. It's also about whether people feel respected by the process and whether they believe their voice counts for anything once the slides are put away and all these meetings end. If people think decisions are always made somewhere else, by somebody else, and for reasons they never fully see, then confidence drains away very, very quickly. So one of the challenges for this board and for this programme is not simply to improve the physical environment, important though that is, it's also to strengthen trust and to show that local voices can genuinely shape what happens next. The earlier engagement carried out through Old Hall People's Partnership produced a very practical and grounded set of messages from local people. What comes through very strongly is that people are talking about everyday realities. They're talking about safety and security, police presence, lighting, antisocial behaviour, road safety and fly tipping. They're talking about parks and open spaces, community hubs, better shops, better access, more youth clubs, family-friendly spaces, and a town centre that feels cared for rather than neglected. And that matters because when you look across all of those points, what you see is that local people don't experience these issues in separate boxes. They experience them as part of daily life. A rundown street scene affects pride. Poor youth provision affects behaviour and perceptions of safety. Poor lighting affects whether people feel able to walk through the area in the evening. A neglected park affects whether families use it and whether it feels like an asset or it feels like an afterthought. So the lessons from this slide is that people are not asking for abstract regeneration. They're asking for practical improvements which make the town feel safer, feel cleaner, feel more active, more connected and more cared for. From the MP event feedback, reinforces many of the same themes, but it does so in language that's especially striking. The phrase that stands out to me is the sense that among many residents, Darlaston has become, in their words, a forgotten town. This is a very powerful description because it says more than a list of complaints ever could. It speaks not just to specific frustrations, but to a feeling of neglect, of being overlooked, of not having had the attentional care that people feel the town deserves. Residents raise concerns around community safety, antisocial behaviour, road safety, cleanliness, appearance of the town centre, derelict sites, heritage and open spaces. But beneath all of this is something deeper. People want Darlaston's identity to be restored and to be celebrated. They want the town's history, character and value to be recognised, not as a museum piece, but as part of a living future. And I think that's a very important point. Regeneration is not only about fixing what is wrong, it's also about recovering what is worth valuing. So the board survey helped organise all of this feedback into a set of key themes. Those themes are around safety and security, clean streets and a stronger town centre, green spaces and healthy living, community and youth provision, culture and heritage, health and well-being, transport and safer roads, and work, productivity and skills. Now, the significance of that is this. The consultation wasn't pointing in 100 random directions. There is a clear pattern. Different people may have used different words, but the same core themes have come through again and again. And that's helpful because it means the board isn't trying to guess what matters. Local people have very clearly told us what matters. And our task now is to ensure that these themes are properly reflected in the plan and in due course in the priorities that flow from it. Because when several hundred people say broadly the same thing about an individual thing, that's not noise, that's not people, the loudest person shouting, that's proper evidence. So just to bring matters to a close, we've got two or three more slides just to cover. I want to talk about safety and security. The slide brings together two of the strongest messages in the entire consultation, really. The first is safety and security. Feeling safe is one of the most basic expectations people should be able to have in the place where they live. But the responses show that many people aren't feeling safe, especially after dark. There was strong support for tackling antisocial behaviour and crime, for greater visible police presence, and for improvements in security and in enforcement. People also spoke about groups of young people gathering in public spaces because there are too few places for them to go. That point matters because it reminds us that enforcement alone is never the whole answer. If there's nowhere constructive for young people to spend time, some of the problems people complain about become more likely and not less. The second theme here is the condition of the town centre and the wider street scene. Residents want cleaner streets, better public spaces, and a town centre that looks like somebody cares about it. They spoke about boarded up shops, litter, fly tipping, and a general sense that parts of the high street feel run down and neglected. And that's not superficial. The appearance of a place shapes confidence in a place, and the centre looks tired, neglected, or unloved. It then affects how people feel about the whole town. So these concerns about safety and street scene are not separate. They're two sides of the same question. Does Darlaston feel like a place that's looked after? The next theme is around green spaces, healthy living, community and youth provision. This slide moves us to two more really important themes that are closely linked. Firstly, green spaces and healthy living. Residents told us very clearly that parks and green spaces matter. They matter for well-being, for family life, for mental health, for pride, and for the simple ability to enjoy the area. Places such as Cook Street Park and Victoria Park were identified as important local assets, but also as places which many feel have not been maintained to the standard people want to see. When people ask for green spaces that are clean, safe and enjoyable for all ages, they're not asking for luxury. They're asking for the basic things that make their ordinary life better. Second, community and youth provision. This is one of the clearest themes across the consultation. Residents repeatedly said that there are not enough things for young people to do, and that some buildings feel outdated or in poor condition, and the community hubs and activities are an important part of building cohesion and helping people come together around local challenges. I think this is one of the areas where the consultation is most persuasive. It's telling us not only what is missing, but what kind of response people believe it would help. Better spaces, better provision and more opportunities for young people and families would be to be involved in a positive community life. It's also interesting, if you look at our survey, it's one of the areas where we had lower levels of representation from young people. So some further work that the youth consultative group are going to do about honing down into the areas and asking young people specifically around the areas that have come out of the survey will be a very useful exercise for us going forward in that consulting, consistent and repeated consulting with important groups. Nearly done. Culture and heritage, health and well-being. This slide brings together two themes, which at first glance may look rather different, but in practice, they're both about the health of the town as a community. On culture and heritage, residents spoke about Darlaston's identity, as I've said just before. They spoke about its industrial history, its traditions, its diversity, and the need for more events, celebrations, and shared activity that bring people together and strengthen pride in the area. This is really significant because pride in place is not built only by physical improvements, as I've said, it's also built by memory, identity, belonging, and the sense that local culture still has somewhere to breathe. On health and well-being, residents raised concerns about drug and alcohol issues, the lack of local well-being activity, limited mental health support, and the need for earlier and easy access to help. Again, this tells us something important. People aren't only thinking about the appearance of the area, they're thinking about whether people can live well in the area, whether support is visible and accessible, and whether the town feels like a place where well-being is being taken seriously. So this slide for me is really about the life of the community beneath the bricks and mortar. This slide turns to another two themes which matter greatly to how people move through life in Darlaston and what opportunities they feel are open to them. On transport and safer roads, the concerns are clear. Residents spoke about speeding, dangerous driving, heavy lorries using local streets, the need for safer crossings near schools, and the desire for better walking routes, cycle paths, and public transport connections. These aren't minor technical complaints. They're about whether children can get to school safely, whether older residents feel confident crossing roads, and whether people can move around the town without feeling they're taking unnecessary risks. On work and productivity and skills, the number of open comments may have been lower, but the message is still unmistakable. Cost of living pressures, access to good jobs remain major concerns. Residents want more opportunities for training, more apprenticeship opportunities, more opportunities for local employment and support for small businesses and starting small businesses. In other words, people aren't only asking for Darlaston to look better, they're asking for Darlaston to work better, to move better, and to offer more secure prospects for the future. This slide gives us one of the clearest summary measures in the whole presentation, really. Only around a third of respondents said they were satisfied in their local area as a place to live, while just over half said they were dissatisfied. Sobering result. We should not try to polish it or explain it away. It tells us plainly that a significant proportion of local people believe the area is falling short of what it should be. But equally, that's precisely why programmes like this have been selected for places like Darlaston and why this programme matters to Darlaston. The purpose of listening is not to hear flattering things about ourselves. The purpose of us listening is to understand what needs to be improved and why. So this slide may be uncomfortable, but it's also useful. It tells us there's a real need, and it confirms that the call for change isn't an imagined or made up one. The figures on this slide are among the most also striking. During the day, just over half of respondents say they feel very or fairly safe when out and about in their local area. But when it comes to after dark, that falls dramatically, with only a small proportion still feeling safe and almost half reporting that they feel very unsafe. This isn't a marginal concern, this is a major quality of life issue. When people do not feel safe after dark, it affects everything. It affects whether they use local spaces, whether they shop locally, whether they take part in activities, whether older people feel confident going out, whether families feel comfortable, and whether the town feels welcoming or anxious once the evening draws in. So if we're serious about pride in place, we have to be serious about safety in this place too. This slide gives us a slightly more balanced picture it's worth recognising. A significant proportion of respondents agreed that Darlaston is a place where people from different backgrounds generally get on. That's an encouraging finding and it would be wrong to overlook it. It suggests that alongside the frustrations and all the concerns that people have raised, there remains real social strength within the town. There's something here to build on. At the same time, there's also a sizable group who disagreed or felt uncertain. So it's not a picture of unqualified confidence. It's a picture of potential, but also of work still to do. And that's why community facilities, shared events, visible engagement, and practical opportunities for people to come together matter so much. Cohesion isn't sustained by slogans, it's sustained by habits, spaces, and relationships. This slide moves us to the question of future pressures and future risks. When residents were asked about the challenges ahead, cost of living and access to good jobs featured very strongly. That's not surprising, but it's still important. It tells us that people are not only worried about the look and feel of the town, they're also worried about the practical realities of everyday life and whether people can build secure futures here. In many ways, that's exactly as it should be. Regeneration that only improves surfaces without improving opportunity will never go far enough. So when we think about the future of Darlaston, we need to think not only about cleaner streets, better parks and a stronger town centre, important though those are. We also need to think about whether people can find decent work, whether young people can see a route forward, and whether local businesses can contribute to that future collectively. This slide's a helpful reminder of who was represented in the response. A third of respondents had children aged 17 and under living with them. Nearly half reported that someone in the household had a long-term illness, health problem, or disability that limits day-to-day activities. The respondents ranged in age from 17 to 95. interesting to note there weren't any people under 17, with an average age of just over 52. There was also a mix of backgrounds represented in the responses. All of that matters because it reminds us that these are not abstract opinions floating free from real life. They're the real views of people carrying responsibilities, carrying pressures, and carrying lived realities of their own. It also reminds us that while this is a strong evidence base, it's not the end of the engagement. The presentation itself acknowledges that younger people were underrepresented, and that's something the next phase will need to address properly, and we're already putting things in place for that. So I would treat this slide as both reassurance, but also challenge. Reassurance that the consultation reached a wide range of people, and challenge because there's still more listening to do. So where do we go from here? The consultation results have been incorporated into the regeneration plan, which is currently with MHCLG for approval. Once that approval process is complete, the Darlaston plan will be published. But publication is not the finish line. In many ways, it's the point at which the real test begins, because the question then becomes whether priorities people have identified can be translated into action in ways that are visible, meaningful, and trusted. The advisory groups will have an important role to play in maintaining that ongoing dialogue with residents, businesses, faith groups, voluntary organisations, and importantly, young people. That continuing engagement matters because consultation doesn't end simply because the survey closed in December. Priorities can shift, new concerns can emerge, people who did not engage first time round may wish to do so later, and if the relationship with the community is to be a serious one, then it must be an ongoing one. There's also clear recognition that younger people were underrepresented, as I've said, and we're going to do some more targeted work on that. So the message I would leave with you this morning, both those of you who are on the board in the meeting and those of you in our community, is a simple one really, that people in Darlaston have spoken clearly and that their voices matter and that we are listening. And the task now is to make sure that what comes next genuinely reflects what the people have told us. It's not the end of the conversation. We'll need to keep listening, keep engaging, and keep working with the community as priorities develop and the plan moves forward. Our aim must be to keep building the relationship as we work together to make Darlaston a better place to live, to work, and to learn in, and a town where people can feel pride again, and most of all, a community where people matter. Thank you.
Roland, thank you very much for presenting that. A lot of detail. Thank you. Have we got any questions for Roland? I'll take a few questions. We are running slightly late, but I think it's important that if there are questions that we ask now. So, Amar, you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. Roland, just so I understand, one for the community really, how does the community know that his views are generally influencing decisions? It's for the wider community of Darlaston.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think the best answer to that is about transparency and follow through. Firstly, the consultation findings have already been incorporated into the regeneration plan, which is obviously subject to MHCLG a ratification. But second, today's presentation is an example of how we want to be open about what people have said and what themes have emerged. And I think I'd also want to say, as the programme moves into delivery, the board and the advisory groups are going to need to keep showing how evidence and how the ideas that they're coming up with and that are being presented to them are being reflected in the work that comes forward. So trust's not going to come between us and the community from saying that people have been listened to, but we've actually got to show that in practice and keep coming back to this report, keep coming back to this data, and keep finding out more information so that we continue to do things that are relevant and are in response to the people that are informing us. I hope that helps.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Adrian, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, sorry. For clarification for all the board members, when is the planned timeframe on the plan being approved and published?
Right. So we had an online meeting with MHCLG earlier this week. Monday, and the plan is currently just being assessed at the moment. I think there are a couple of minor things they wanted to amend to it, which we will do very quickly. And we are expecting, I think I'm right in saying, I've got the presentation in front of me, I can't see people's faces, but I think it's going to be the end of April or beginning of May. Is that right, Kelly? Is that what they said?
Yeah, towards the end of April, I think it was.
Yes, it was. Yeah, okay, thank you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Roland.
That's my pleasure.
So, Roland, just one question for me. Obviously, we're in listening mode, you've very clearly said, and that's the message that's come through the presentation with a load of data backing it. How do you, if people out there, communities, residents want to get their voice heard, have they still got time to do that is one question. The second is, how do they get involved? Because, that involvement is really going to empower the way we listen to community and ensure that it's embedded into what we're doing.
This is a 10-year plan. It's never too late to contribute, and you can contribute in lots of ways. We have a website with a messaging system on there. That's www.darlastonplan.co.uk, and there is a response form on there. On there also is our email address, which I think you've probably got on a note that I haven't got in front of me, but which we will mention again before the end of the open meeting, and you can contact us there. You can, that can just be to say, look, this is an idea I think that fits in with what I've heard about what you're doing, and this is how I think it'll benefit people. If you're a group that are delivering services in a voluntary group or other group that are delivering services in the area, then I also would encourage you to, if there are things that you've always wanted to do that you're convinced that would make a difference, please contact us and let us know. And if you are someone who wants to get involved with the board activities, we are still looking for people to join us on the advisory boards, on the advisory groups, and you can make an application. Just email us or contact us via the website. Tell us that you're interested in looking at joining, and we'll send you out some information and a form. Fill that in and come and talk to us. We'd love to see you. There's room on the advisory boards, and those advisory groups are really important because they're the ones that are going to be presenting, deciding on what comes through to the board for decision as well. So they're very, very important. And I would say that, you please be aware that those groups are only taking on residents now. So you need to live in the area to be able to get on those groups.
Okay. Can I bring Rodney and then Connie, and then we'll bring the meeting to a close.
Mm-hmm.
So Roland, I think it's important to let everybody know what's going to happen next now that the plan has gone to MHCLG. I know you've touched on it, but I think we should just re-emphasise what those next steps are.
Yeah, so the first step is that we will get the okay from them. We will then issue a copy of the plan, and that will be made available on our website. We're not going to print off thousands of copies of it. The money that we need to have needs to be spent in the area. So, but we will make it available online and probably put some paper copies into the library and important places like that where people can access it if they don't have online access. And then we will take those plans and we will start then we've already started in our advisory groups, as you know, the consultation process with the youth in particular. We're going to look at setting up some youth consultative groups within schools, etc., and to start to get some ideas about what we can do. And what we'll be looking for is a number of long-term plans, which may involve capital expenditure or some commitment of funds, some medium-term plans which we can start now, which maybe start to show some benefits and start to show some real effects in the community over the medium term. And then also what's very important is once we've got the plan agreed, we can start with some of the quick win work where we might be able to do some things at fairly low cost or medium cost that'll have a much more immediate effect on the communities. And those ideas aren't just going to come from the advisory groups. We want people to tell us what they would like once they've read the plan and understand what our priorities are. If they've got ideas that align with those plans, then we would love to hear from them. And if you are groups that want to do work, obviously we'll want to make sure that you're a safe place for us to invest money. So we will ask to look at the groups that are wanting us to deliver plans to make sure that their governance is right and their financial controls, etc., are right, so we can hold them to account properly for the work that they're doing on behalf of the community and on behalf of the Darlaston plan. Thanks for the question, Aradna.
Thank you, Roland. Connie, can I bring you in?
Bear with me a second, just get rid of that The plan and the overview and the slides are great. I think that they really do describe the process we've been through and the outcome from those processes. In the next steps, so I do think we might be missing a trick. So a lot of the thematic areas like crime, work, health, there are public services that are responsible to deliver on those outcomes. So I do think the board has got an opportunity to work with those partner organisations, collaborate with them to ensure that the focus of their work is based on the needs that we've identified in the survey. And I think that that's part of the work that the board should do.
I think that's really helpful. And one of the other things I do is I run training for chairs of governors across of schools across Walsall. And we work very closely with public health. They take a part of every briefing session, and I'm very aware of there's a whole raft of programs and things going on in public health that we can work with and work alongside, as well as inform them and give them more information about our particular challenges in our area. Yeah, I agree.
Can I just respond to that, Chair?
Yeah.
I always say this is not a lack of services. It's the equitable access to services. So it may be that the board's focus is ensuring that those services are aware of the needs that we've identified through the survey.
Absolutely.
And that we influence and target those services to ensure that they have the needs of Darlaston residents when they're making strategic decisions, when they're designing and delivering services.
Absolutely. We're not here to repeat or duplicate anything. I absolutely agree with you. It's a very, very good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Can I bring Peter in, please?
Yeah, Manjit, apologies. Can you all hear me okay? The
Yes.
mic is quite it's quite weird in here, to be honest with you. I'm in a new room. I was asked to produce a couple of slides in relation to crime and antisocial behaviour. Conscious of time, do you still want me to whistle stop tour you through that?
Please. Yes, please.
Yeah.
If you could.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So bear me 2 seconds and tell me when you can see my screen. I will be as quick as I possibly can.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, lovely. So please don't all be scared by the multitude of dots. Appreciate it might be hard to see with the sizing, but what this data is effectively the winter seasonality plan. So 6 months data within the area that we are having as our plan. It's quite difficult because it falls outside of our generic mapping for our crime analytical data. So what this map will show you is total crime and antisocial behaviour within that ward over the last 6 months. But that's important because it captures Christmas, it captures the mischief week, bonfire nights, etc., and runs up until the end of February. So as you can see, that map there has identified a key location in terms of a hotspot for concentration of crime and antisocial behaviour, of which it falls into that little location we've identified there is 7% of total recorded crime for our area and 15% of total recorded antisocial behaviour within the whole ward. But then that whole area is concentrated into that small location. It's not going to surprise people to know where that is. I think we're all pretty much on the money with that. So top repeat streets: St Lawrence Way, Pinfold Street, King Street and Darlaston Road. And as there has been the hotspot repeat location for both crime and antisocial behaviour, accounting for 30% of total recorded crime and 44% of antisocial behaviour within that location. Top 6 categories in relation to the hotspot area were assault, 12% of the hotspot offences, assault with injury. So obviously we have, for those that may not know, you have common assaults, which can be just the use of words, which creates a fear. That's then recorded as an assault, common assault without injury. And then physical assault with injury, which was 12%, and shoplifting, which was 11%. Next, we have theft of motor vehicle and criminal damage to vehicle, and then also possession articles, and that can be articles with intention to go and steal or things like bladed articles. So of note, and interestingly, we run through local policing our PAT meetings, so police and communities together meetings, and again it falls in line with what the community are telling us is their areas of concern are King Street, Wilkes Avenue, which fall within the areas that we already know. And then obviously we had over the winter period a slight spike in robberies, which I'm pleased to announce that that's subsided now following a couple of arrests and some key positive work done there. Other things just to fly through it. I know we had the Safer Initiatives Winter Initiative and we focused on Darlaston. I can confirm today that I am going to push for and support. I'm predicting a summer initiative is coming our way, and I'm going to support Darlaston being part of that initiative as well. So that will give us some more dedicated resource. I'm currently working with Paul around the hotspot location, specifically the library, where we have identified a room, and I'm just waiting for some electrical work to be done in that room to allow me to post a police officer to have a semi drop-in base for the police smack bang in the middle of our hotspot location. So that is very, very quickly, whistle stop tour around. It doesn't tell us anything I don't think anybody would have predicted. We know where the hotspots are. We know where we need to look for our CCTV. I know, Paul, I don't know if you want to come in around some of the CCTV locations that will now start to marry up with where we're seeing our hotspots.
So we tend not to in public talk about our CCTV locations, but what I can say is that they match the hotspots and that we have cameras in the key areas that Peter's identified.
Thank you for that, Paul. Can I be the last question and then we'll bring the matter to a close?
Yeah, just to say, Pete, I'm assuming you work with our community safety team within WHG in terms of antisocial behaviour. And as a board, this is where this information then leads itself into another area. So youth engagement, youth activities, youth clubs, the government are going to be investing a lot of money into youth services. So as a board, strategically, we need to look to see where those opportunities are, spending less of our money and leaving in other money that can help with young people and then by default help with some of this antisocial behaviour that's going on. Not that I'm saying it's all created by young people, because it certainly isn't, but it is an option for us as a board to work smartly.
Connie, we've just had a youth club open a few months back now in Walsall Town Centre, and and it came with a lot of concerns, fears around issues that it may cause, but actually it's been a real success in my eyes. It's been an absolute success, and it allows the voice of a child to say how they feel. Something as simple as within the youth club in the town, there's a wish board. It's lovely to see what the kids are writing. They're talking about it. They're leaving their messages about how they want to feel and what they want to see in the town. I think we underestimate the value of a young person's voice. And I want to catch on something that Roland said. You said something about hope, and you said that we've literally just about 52%, I think you mentioned. But actually, I think we're on a tightrope here. And it's so really important that we get consistency. I'm not going to pledge to do something that I can't see through consistently, because if we lose that hope, we have a massive challenge on our hands. So I think whatever we do and agree to in this board has got to be able to be delivered without fail. So I won't be committing to something I can't physically commit to.
Thank you very much for the inputs today. I would like to bring our public part of the meeting to a close. Surinder, could you stop the recording?